Welcome to Copilot Podcasts. Behind the platinum blonde hair and that iconic smile lay a woman who rewrote her own destiny. Today, we're diving deep into the transformation of Norma Jeane into Marilyn Monroe, a story of reinvention that came with an enormous price.
You know, what's fascinating is that this transformation wasn't just about changing her hair color or her name. It was about completely reconstructing an identity.
And that reconstruction started really early, didn't it? I mean, even her birth name has some uncertainty around it.
Exactly. She was born Norma Jeane Mortensen on June 1, 1926, in Los Angeles. But even that name didn't stick. She was baptized as Norma Jeane Baker.
Wait, so right from the start, her identity was kind of fluid?
Yeah, and it gets more complicated. Her mother, Gladys Baker, worked as a film cutter at RKO Studios, but she struggled with severe mental health issues.
That must have had a huge impact on her childhood.
It really did. When Norma Jeane was just 9 years old, her mother was institutionalized after being diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia.
God, that's heartbreaking.
It was. She ended up spending her childhood shuttling between 12 different foster homes and even spent time in an orphanage.
12 foster homes? That's a lot of instability for a child.
And you know what's interesting? Her mother actually named her after Norma Talmadge, who was this huge silent film star in the 1920s.
So even before she became Marilyn Monroe, Hollywood was somehow woven into her story.
And there's this fascinating story about a photo her mother showed her when she was little.
Oh, what photo?
It was of a man with a pencil-thin mustache, like Clark Gable's. Her mother told her it was her father, and young Norma Jeane actually started telling her classmates that Clark Gable was her dad.
Wow. Already creating these alternate realities, even as a child.
Yeah, and you know what's really striking? To escape the foster care system, she got married at just 16 years old to James Dougherty.
16? That seems so young.
It was, but here's where her story takes an interesting turn. During World War II, she was working at the Radio Plane Company when she was discovered by a photographer.
And that's when everything started to change, right?
Exactly. She enrolled in a 3-month modeling course, and by 1946, she'd divorced Dougherty and headed to Hollywood with big dreams.
And that's when Marilyn Monroe was born?
Well, that's when Ben Lyon, the head of casting at 20th Century Fox, suggested the name. Marilyn came from Broadway star Marilyn Miller, and Monroe was her mother's maiden name.
So even her famous name was carefully constructed.
Absolutely. Though interestingly, she didn't legally change her name to Marilyn Monroe until 1956, a decade after she started using it professionally.
That's fascinating. And by then she was already a huge star, right?
Oh yeah, she'd already starred in hits like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and The 7-Year Itch. But here's what people often miss. Behind that dumb blonde persona was an incredibly intelligent woman.
Really? How so?
She was actually a voracious reader. She read Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, attended literary salons, studied art. She was essentially a self-educated intellectual.
That's so different from the public image we usually see of her.
And she was politically aware too. She supported the civil rights struggle and explored various spiritual paths, including Buddhism and Judaism.
You know, in many ways, she seems like she was ahead of her time.
She really was. Arthur Miller once said she didn't have a single conventional bone in her body.
Speaking of Arthur Miller, she had some pretty high-profile relationships, didn't she?
Yeah, she married Joe DiMaggio in 1954, but that only lasted 9 months. Then came her marriage to playwright Arthur Miller from 1956 to 1961.
But despite all this success and these relationships, she struggled a lot privately, right?
She did. She battled severe depression and anxiety throughout her life. The pressures of fame took a huge toll on her mental health.
It's interesting how she managed to maintain that bright public persona while dealing with so much internally.
You know what she once said about that? Hollywood is a place where they'll pay you $1,000 for a kiss and 50 cents for your soul.
Wow, that's pretty profound, actually.
And she was really aware of how she was being perceived. She kept secret apartments, wore disguises in public, tried to maintain some sense of privacy.
It's like she was living two lives, the public Marilyn and the private Norma Jeane.
Exactly. And you know what's really interesting? She's now being recognized as kind of a proto-feminist figure.
A proto-feminist? How so?
Well, she fought for control over her career at a time when that was rare for women in Hollywood. She even started her own production company in 1954.
That must have been pretty groundbreaking for the 1950s.
It was. She was really challenging the studio system and traditional gender roles. even if she wasn't explicitly calling herself a feminist.
So she was living these feminist principles before they were even really defined as such.
Right, and she was doing it while maintaining this incredible level of stardom. Her films grossed over $200 million by 1962.
That's equivalent to about $2 billion today, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But you know what's sad? Despite all that success, she still struggled to find happiness.
She once said something really poignant about that, didn't she?
Yes, she said, I was never used to being happy, so that wasn't something I ever took for granted.
That's heartbreaking, especially given how much joy she brought to others.
And it really speaks to the complexity of her character. She wasn't just this one-dimensional sex symbol, she was a deeply thoughtful, complicated person.
It's amazing how she managed to overcome so much. The unstable childhood, the mental health struggles, the industry pressures.
She even overcame dyslexia and a debilitating stutter to become one of the most famous actresses in the world.
That's incredible resilience.
And you know what's really striking? She maintained this drive to be perfect, to conquer the world, despite all these challenges.
It seems like that drive might have been both her strength and her weakness.
Absolutely. One historian described it as a kind of megalomania, this ambition to be perfect, to conquer everything.
So when we look at Marilyn Monroe's legacy today, what do you think is the most important thing to remember?
I think it's that behind the glamour and the tragedy, there was this incredibly complex, intelligent woman who fought to define herself on her own terms.
Someone who wasn't just transformed by Hollywood, but who actively participated in her own transformation.
Exactly. She wasn't just Marilyn Monroe or Norma Jeane. She was both, and neither, and something entirely her own.
And maybe that's what makes her story so enduring, this tension between who she was and who she became.
You know, she once said that Hollywood is a place where they'll pay you $1,000 for a kiss, but 50 cents for your soul.
And in the end, she gave us both, the glamour and the soul. Thanks for joining us on Copilot Podcasts, where we've seen how sometimes the most fascinating stories lie in the shadows behind the spotlight.